Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we discuss Inside the Den. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly from that first preseason game the Detroit Lions had. And we'll talk about what we look forward to in the upcoming practices as the Detroit Lions training camp continues on. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hi, everyone. This is Herman Moore, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, was also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's a current scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here. Good to have some film to talk about as well.
Oh, for sure. Nothing better than watching live action against a different opponent.
For sure. James Cook is on vacation. We should hopefully have him back with us on the next episode. But in the meantime, we want to remind you, tell your friends, tell your family about the show. You can find us on all social media platforms. Well, mostly Twitter and Instagram. Find us on all streaming platforms as well as YouTube. And Coach, I got to bring this up because we totally forgot to talk about this before. But 2 episodes ago, when you, James, and I were all on together, that was the 200th episode of Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Can you believe that? That's
crazy. It's easy to do things like that when you're having fun.
That it is. And because we hit that milestone, we want to do a giveaway. We want to give something to the people that listen, that view, and see if, something they're interested in. And so we found something. And so we're going to do a giveaway, but I wanted to announce it. It's going to be on social media, but we want to announce it here as well. In case you're not on social media, you have the opportunity to participate. We're going to give away a Barry Sanders statue that was given away at Ford Field 2 seasons ago. Never opened, still in the original box it came in. And if you want to win this, you need to do 3 simple things. You need to go to our Twitter page and find us. We are on at NTSOL Podcast. So follow our show on Twitter. Find the post about this and retweet it. And then the third thing you do is go to YouTube and subscribe. And the YouTube page is Not the Same Old Lions. So do those 3 things. You'll be entered into the drawing, and one lucky winner will get this sent to their house. So, yeah. Okay, Inside the Den. Let's start there because Inside the Den gave us a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about the draft, which is cool because, little things have come out, but this is an all-encompassing look behind it. And they kind of went chronologically, so that's what we'll do. We'll start with Tyleik Williams, Coach. We're getting drafted. They saw how excited they were once they were on the clock. They could have traded back. We'd heard about that. But, they said the intelligence of Tyleik Williams jumped out to them at the combine. And anytime you see that coaching staff get excited, before they even name the guy, they know who they're going to pick. They're just excited he was there. What does that tell you from the behind-the-scenes look at this?
Well, I think that's, one of the things, again, this is one of those guys that he kind of gets lost in the Ohio State team last year, because of all the offense and, winning the Natty and all those things. And when you go back and watch film on the guy, you start seeing what the Lions were seeing, and then of course, when you come in and you get those interviews at Combine and, again, we don't get to hear those, but from a coaching point, when you talk to somebody that knows the game, that the intelligence of the game that can, translate into, playing fast, which is huge, which I think is what they saw in Williams. And again, those interviews are huge, from a drafting standpoint, because everybody's got tape. Everybody can run the 40. Everybody can do pro agilities. But when you see how smart he was, that was just something that fits in with the Lions because of their playbook.
Yeah, and obviously they ask players, personal questions, ask them about philosophies of life and football, but then they also ask them questions pertaining to that film you're talking about. I was amazed how much film they blur out because I'm sitting here thinking, well, it's just film. Why are they blurring that out? And I think you could probably speak to that. I mean, do they not want other people to see the type of film they're having him analyze, or what's the secret behind that?
Well, I think a lot of it when you talk about film, study. I mean, people have all they have their departments that are breaking film down. There's people grading film and stuff like that. But you see one or two things that maybe somebody else didn't see, and you don't want anybody else to say, "Wow, this guy is way better than we thought." And again, I think you go back to Lions scouting system and Brad Holmes and the department on what they've done with late picks and early picks over the last 4 years. And it's just amazing at what they're finding. And again, the film looks great, but the personal interviews and what that person's going to bring to the table out, off of the playing field and coming onto the playing field and using his head as well as the athleticism in the game is huge. And so I think that's one of the things that the Lions just do a terrific job at. And I know there's a lot of teams going to are trying to mirror what they're doing.
For sure. And we saw here again, like you said, that they found the guy they wanted. They didn't trade back. They had opportunities to trade back. They didn't trade up, though, either. Last year, we saw them trade up for Terrion Arnold. That didn't keep them from trading up in the second round, though. They didn't trade up in the first, right? They were at number 60. And Holmes talked about that pool of guys that they had their eye on just started to shrink. And it just gets you a little bit more nervous as your pick's getting closer. And so they moved up 3 spots for Tate Ratledge. I believe Sheila Ford talked a little bit about the possibility of Tate even playing center back then, which, again, we don't know what's going to happen with that. They've been rotating back and forth. Now it sounds like Glasgow might be in at center. And again, I think that could play itself out all through training camp. But that explains why they moved up just 3 spots. And, Coach, if there's a guy there, you want him, and he's within your reach, and you have to give up just a little something in a later round, it seems like the right move. And, this guy is going to be a guy we really need now that now that Ragnall's retired. So I think I'm pretty excited that they made that move too.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's one of the things is, first of all, go back to the Williams thing, everything was edge, edge, edge. And, there were some great D tackles out there. So they got that. But then you look at a Tate Ratledge type of guy and move up 3 to, somebody below you is probably thinking about guard center. They probably had an inkling that Rags might be done this year for sure the following year. And I think, again, another guy, plus Ratledge, you look at it, he loves to hunt and fish, and so did Rags. So he kind of he's going to fill those shoes, probably not athletically just yet, but, off the field and another one of those guys that you as you read and talk and speak with guys around the league, around the college and his coaches and stuff like that, you start to fall in love with the guy and go, "Oh my God, this is somebody we really want." And he comes from a great program. Again, that's another thing you look at and say these guys that come out of that program that are drafted in that, that are recruited in that program seem to turn the page and end up in the league. So another great find for us, and only moving up 3 to get them is awesome.
Yeah, and again, we're expecting 2 starters out of those first 2 picks. And so rather than risk it, I mean, sometimes, Brad Holmes has said sometimes they wait and they risk, and other times they're like, it's not worth the risk to lose the guy they want. And that's round 3. They didn't move up 3 picks. They moved up like 30 picks, right, to get here. And they said, they came out and said if they wait to 102, where they were supposed to pick, there would be a lesser player available if they stayed there. And everyone's like, well, they gave up 2 threes to go up and get Tesla. And giving up those extra picks in addition to the current 3rd round pick, before the pick happened, they were talking about how much they liked this guy and his potential before he was even on the board, before they knew that was going to be their pick. And they also came out and said they've had a scout watching this guy since when he was back at Hillsdale. I mean, obviously, local area guy and stuff, so you know about that. But it tells you this was a well-researched guy. And, I mean, one game in the Hall of Fame game, just a couple plays, he's already looked like he might be potentially exceeding expectations from a fan standpoint. Again, I'm not gonna overestimate how much he'll work in this year, but this guy seems to have the potential to be a game-changing guy in the 3rd round, one of those mid-round picks that could way exceed his draft position.
Oh, for sure. And again, they've done their research on this guy for many years, from the Hillsdale to to Arkansas. So, and you look at his high school film, him playing quarterback in the state finals. I mean, you don't see a lot of tall receivers. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. It's definitely changed over. But you don't. I think we had a pretty big receiver back in the days that his measurables were unbelievable. He's probably one of the top five receivers of all times, and Tesla. So you look at him and you go, man, this kid is he's got all the intangibles. He's a local kid. He loves the Lions. He's 6'5". He runs like a deer. He's got great hands. He tracks the ball well. And so, you're looking at, even if you do make those trades, again, one of those picks was Aaron Glenn from losing Aaron Glenn. So, yeah, you lost a pick, a chance to do it, but you also have a team that's put together with 20, 21 starters returning. And you got a guy that is a developmental guy to fill in after Tim Patrick is gone. Like you said, he shined. He also had some negatives in that preseason game, but man, does it start to look like the Lions made an awesome choice, and we'll see over the next 3 weeks in the preseason, and then of course as practice as he gets better. Does he get better after this week and wait till regular season? So looking like a great pick for the Lions.
Yeah, and then well, again, we're going back talking about the draft right now, which happened months ago, but we have more insight about it. And we'll just wrap up kind of talking about day 3. Frazier on day 3, they were surprised he was there. They had him much higher than other teams did, and they had lots of conviction on him. And that they would have taken him at the end of the 3rd round if they hadn't traded up and gotten had gotten Isaac Tesla. And so that they were thrilled about that. They got the top 4 guys they wanted. Plus, Ahmed Hassanin and Dan Jackson were both guys they wanted, and they didn't know which one they were going to get, and they got them both. So the Lions were so happy with those first 4 picks. They're like, we got 4 guys we really wanted. That is everything coming together. The scouting department, the knowing your draft board, knowing your opponent's draft boards, and getting it all to work out. And so it's great. Obviously, the Lions selectively release stuff. I still would love to see that film clip when 2 years ago when the Lions had to trade back because a defensive back went the pick before them to Seattle, and I wonder what the reaction was there. But obviously, they had a contingency plan, and I think that contingency plan worked out pretty darn well. Any other final thoughts on Inside the Den before we get to that Hall of Fame game?
No, just looking forward to Frazier getting healthy so we can see what he can do on the field for us. And is he that next backup guy?
I agree with that. Okay, Hall of Fame game. Ugly score, ugly turnovers. But it doesn't mean we have an ugly team, right, Coach? I mean, we saw a lot of instant reaction on social media, even though Chris Collinsworth tried to calm the fears during the game and say, this isn't really the team. It's just like, a sliver of the team. So what can we take away from this game and, start from that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I was getting text messages all through the game, from my friends. Oh my God, our quarterbacks. Oh my, if you're when you watch a preseason game, you should watch the ability of the players and how they progress as these preseasons go on and not a win. I mean, if you're watching that and saying, "Oh my God, the Lions are terrible because they lost 34-7 in a preseason game where they sat 26 players and 40 of those guys that played in the game are probably going to get cut," and the other thing too is, I'm again from the coaching standpoint. Let me throw this out. NFL teams have around 10 possessions per game, and I looked this up because we only scored 7 points, and that's what I was hearing. So the average NFL team has 10 possessions per game. An average NFL team scores on 21.3 possessions of their drives. So that's 1 in 5. So when you have 5 turnovers, everything changes. And
Yeah.
you even look at Hendon Hooker coming in. I think we turned the ball over to start the second half. And so we lost that possession. So Hendon Hooker, no matter what his numbers and things look like, and the same thing with Allen, we fumbled the ball on the opening possession in the first half. So that was another opportunity for Allen to show what he had. Hendon Hooker for an opportunity to show what he had. So I think those are some of the things on you got to look at. And so let's see how they progress in the second preseason game where Hooker will start and Allen would be the backup. And let's see how those things change. And maybe they're going to play a few of the different guys that are coming back. So plus the guys that they did play have their first preseason game, their first NFL game under their belt. Let's see how we progress and how much better we are in the second one against Falcons. Knowing the Lions staff, we haven't lost 2 games in a row. Not that we're going to win this one, but I'll guarantee we play a lot better against the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, this was week 0, right? And they had a little bit less, training camp time, even though they started before other teams. This is where you're working out a ton of kinks. And you're like, well, so did the Chargers, and they put up 34 points. Okay, well, 5 turnovers really changes that whole calculus. And I agree with you. You're looking at player ability, not if you win the game. I mean, obviously the players are playing to try to win the game, but there were a lot of brand new things in this, and exactly it. Not the last time, but we saw the Lions go undefeated in preseason and then the opposite in the regular season once. So I do not pay any attention to the final results. It's getting work in. And these guys now have, some of them for the first time, tape live action against another opponent. And so that's going to be a big deal when they go back to practice this week. Coach, the quarterback play. Now, I know a lot of people were hoping Hendon Hooker would start this game. He didn't, and we'll talk about how that'll be different in a minute. But you talked about five turnovers. Some were kick returns or whatnot, but we had a lot of interceptions in this game. And so talk to me about the quarterback play and those interceptions. Did you see anything on any of that like stood out to you?
Yeah, again, I was getting the text message with, oh my God, Allen's terrible. He can't throw the ball. Here's a couple things are. Normally when there's a interception, the first thing you say is the quarterback had a bad throw. Okay, but you don't look at how the route was run. Now, I think in the first interception with Kennedy, I don't think Kennedy came back to the ball. Quarterbacks are taught to throw the receiver open. This is the NFL. This isn't high school where you can wait for the receiver to get open. This is in college where you can probably get away with that sometimes. This is the NFL where you're playing against the elite of the elite, the 1% of the 1%. So you were supposed to throw your receiver open. The Kennedy route, I don't know. I don't think Allen's ball was great, but it was probably thrown to a spot. I felt Kennedy did not work his way back to the ball to help break it up. The corner made a great jump. Allen may have made a misread on whether it was a zone concept or a man concept. So if you have a bad pass and a bad route, you're probably going to throw an interception and almost a pick six. The Tesla one. That was a deep ball. That was, hey, we're going to throw it up. It's a timing route to a 6'5" receiver. We want to see if he can go get it. Tesla had a little problem getting off the line of scrimmage, getting off of his receiver, which you will learn that these guys are a lot stronger, a lot faster, and better feet, and they use their hands well. It could have been an interference call too. And so Allen threw that ball up. And look what happens. There's an interception on that one. So, don't blame it on the quarterback as much. Again, we don't grade those. This is going to be done in the quarterback room and in the offense court, in their team meetings. And they're going to say, hey, you got to put a little more air on that ball. Hey, Tesla, you got to get off the ball. Hey, Kennedy, you got to come back. And so I think those are things people have to look at, but they don't. They look at the first thing and say, oh, Allen's terrible. He threw 2 interceptions. I remember, actually, I just saw this play a few years back where Matthew Stafford threw the ball up in triple coverage, and that big wide receiver went up and took it away from everybody in the end zone for a touchdown. So that was kind of what they were trying to find out on Tesla. So let's wait to predict or determine that Allen and Hooker are not the quarterbacks until after preseason 2, 3, and 4 are done. Now, if those same throws come out next week, maybe you can raise a red flag. Right now, I'm not raising any red flags.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of variables that go into it. But those turnovers really limited what the offense could do as far as how many touches they got. It was still very frustrating to see them not be able to move the ball down. At the same time, the Lions going to be very vanilla with their play calling right now as well. It's not just you don't have the starters in there. they're not going to run their regular offense because they don't want people to see all the stuff that they're going to do. And so, like you said, and I think that's the message of the show is we're looking at the ability of the players and what they're able to do. And you want to see growth to growth week to week. You want to stack them like you and I and James have talked about the last couple of years, especially you. You're like, you got to stack it week to week and get better. And hopefully a lot of growth happened. You had a number of guys who had never been on an NFL field before, and they're out there and they're playing. And so let's touch on the rookies real quick. Tyleek Williams and Tate Ratledge did not play. Right, they're both expected to be starters, and they'll be relied on heavily right away. So a lot's going to be expected. Do you think we might see them at all in the preseason? And I guess we can even talk about that with the starters. Do you think there's a chance that they will play like in week 3 or week 4, or maybe week 3, like for a series or 2 or something? Because I know the Lions didn't do that last year.
Yeah, one of the things I was reading that they call it the 12 to 17 player guys, the guys that are going to play, but they also want to get their feet wet. And so I think you're going to see, I think you're going to see them at some point, whether it's just a series or 2. Dan Campbell's done this, and we know it. He does not play his starters. He does not play the guys, the bread and butter of the team during preseason games. Some people complain and say, oh my God, that's bad. They're not going to be ready for game 1. These 2 rookies you may see just because they are rookies and to see, maybe a series or 2. I hope they do it. I think it'll happen. And, but we'll find out. And again, knock on wood, injuries and replacing guys and who's getting banged up and who's getting too many reps. Will come back to where they may say, hey, we need to get 10 to 12 snap count out of these guys.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the fact that Lions have more joint practices this year. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a big thing. I like you. I think you could see Ratledge and Tyleek in there getting a few reps. I'd be interested. Maybe they put the offensive and defensive lines in there for a series or 2. But I think the joint practice is where you're going to see that. I don't need to see St. Brown or JMO or Gibbs or Monty or Goff on the field in a preseason game. I think they all know what they're doing. Those other units working together because you've got some rookies in there and some new parts, maybe. But again, that's what you're going to have the joint practices for that. Some of these other guys down the depth chart, they don't get the reps in practice the same level. They're the ones that I think are going to benefit the most from this. We talked about Tesla. He already showed some flashes. He could make an impact more significant than initially thought. I mean, he's going to be doing some special team stuff no matter what. And I expect him to still be behind Patrick, but we started seeing a little bit of flashes. That first catch he made, the acceleration after the catch is what caught my eye, Coach. We know his size. We know he catches everything with his hands, but I'm like, whoa, you just saw him like pull away from that one guy and somebody else had to get him. So I'm getting more excited about Isaac Tesla than I thought I would this quickly, but you've already hit on it. He's got some things to work on, but the potential's there.
Oh, that play that reminded me of JMO's first. I don't know if it was his first catch or second catch back. I think it was rookie year when he went across and he took it to the house. That little dig. I don't know if that's probably a dig route. I haven't had time to go through it, but he runs his routes very hard. I mean, he's running full speed on his route, but then he's got a second gear after he catches it. Yeah. That is just a plus. I'll tell you the other play from him that stuck out is his gunner on the punt team. I don't know if you realized, I think it was the one right before halftime when Foxy put it down the right sidelines, and inside, I don't remember where it was, inside 10 or 15. I was watching the game on my phone because I'm on the road. And but anyways, and to see him fly down there and cover on that's just flashes of, wow, if he can be a gunner and he's going to get those reps and, with that explosion. So that tells you what he turned a lot of eyes and put on a lot of lights, and he definitely didn't hurt his stock at all for playing this year.
Well, remember the Lions were going to put JMO at gunner. Where they put JMO and Tesla both at gunners. Boy, would that be an amazing fake punt opportunity right there?
Yeah, you don't put it past them. I like that. Double
Yeah, I mean,
reverse.
again, I don't know. We want to put JMO at gunner. I know JMO would love it, but anyway, that would be a very unique. It would make your return team think. Wait a minute, are they really going to punt it, or are they going to have Jack Fox throw it to one of these guys? All right, well, let's move down the depth chart a little bit more, or the drafting spot. When you've got Ahmed Hassanin, the rookie defensive end, who might already be a fan favorite based on the draft video. Great athlete, high motor, still newer to the game, though. He even said he still has a lot to learn, but he's going to be an exciting player to watch. And, Coach, he already gave us something to watch, and I know you're already excited about him. So kind of share what you're seeing and what you're thinking.
Well, and again, we talked about. I loved him at the combine. His story, you already mentioned, the love of the game, his excitement. The guy, we're down 30 points or 20 points, and he gets that TFL, and he's excited as all can be. He was the highest grade, 84.7. Again, this isn't the Lions grade. This is, one of the PFF or one of those guys, but he still was there. And that he had 4 tackles and 20 snap counts. He played 12 special teams plays, which I think he doubled everybody else. But the play that sticks out to me is the one where he's fighting the double team. He may have got pushed off the line of scrimmage, but he kept fighting, kept fighting, kept fighting. The play went for probably 7, 8 yard gain down the left hash, and he just launched his body into one of the offensive players that was there because there was no way that guy was getting another yard. I mean, you got to find that. I don't know if you saw it, and I don't remember exactly where it was at, but when you see guys like that, he's not going to give up on anything. He's not going to give up on a play, and the excitement for him with 20 snap counts and what he's doing. It's funny. I read a story the other day where Hutch told him to quit watching it. Hutch has quit watching my film because I guess he is just watching all of Hutch's film all the time, trying to get better. So this guy is going to make plays. And I said it earlier. I don't do predictions. And he's going to have 5+ sacks this year. I just feel it.
Well, and he's that football player, right? He's that guy that is self-motivated to want to get better. And that's what they saw in him. They still saw a raw talent that has another level yet. And I know he's one of your favorites right from draft day. And so him and Mekhi Wingo, a couple guys you're hoping that are going to make some impacts in the future here for the Lions. And don't put it past the Lions. I mean, Coach, think about this. Who's our starting left guard potentially this year? Christian Mahogany, right?
Mm-hmm.
We drafted him with our last pick last year.
Mm-hmm.
A second pick in the 6th round last year, and the guy is a starter in year 2. Like, that is incredible return. And it's, we couldn't believe he slipped that far last year. But yeah, so this could be a very good pick. And again, it's exciting. He's bringing that excitement like Malcolm Rodriguez did a couple years back. And so it'll be fun to watch. 2 other guys, Dominic Lovett, wide receiver. He was drafted in the 7th round. He's going to need a good camp to convince the Lions to keep 6 receivers. I know he had a drop early, but I do think that the next couple weeks will give us a better feel. But I'm kind of thinking the Lions are going to keep every draft pick from this year. I don't think any of them are not going to make the team. I think they will keep 6 wide receivers on this roster. Dan Jackson, secondary guy, safety, I believe, is where they got him slotted. But he's a big special teams guy right now. And so anything to add on those 2 guys? Anything you saw on them from the game?
No, love it. Again, dropped his first pass, but then look what he did the rest of the game. That's a star. That's a plus. The Lions look at that and go, okay, his adversity arose and he ate it up after that, and he had a good game. The guy can run. He's fast, he's quick, and I think I agree with you on the draft picks. It'll be interesting to see if any of them do get cut. But again, with the special teams and the new kickoff rules and stuff like that, you got to have those guys. As long as they can shine, everybody, late round guys, if you can shine on special teams, you're going to make the club. And so I look forward to seeing how they improve, the next 3 preseason games.
For sure. And the Lions, if they draft someone late, they also draft for potential. So I think they're going to give them a full year in the system. So I do believe all of them will make it. Again, that would require a 6th receiver on the offense, which is what they don't always do. I think some guys drafted in the last couple of years might be more at risk if they haven't developed the way the Lions thought they would. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. But let's go back to quarterbacks, right? Where we're hoping to see Hendon Hooker improve as preseason progresses. I like the fact that they're going to switch the starting spot. I want to see Hendon Hooker start. He will be with the higher guys on the depth chart at wide receiver, which means he'll be throwing to Tesla and guys earlier on. And you start kind of from scratch, right? Because there's no score. You're not down 21 points. It just kind of has a different vibe, a different feeling. Would I like it if Hendon Hooker's stats looked more like Trey Lance's stats from the game? Sure. But I'm not going to pile on and say, all right, well, all is lost. And so I'm not going to panic. Hopefully, no matter what happens with Hendon Hooker, he never takes a meaningful snap this season, right? Because that's what you really want. But you do want a little bit of hope that, hey, if something does happen, someone has to come in for a short bit, you got someone that can get the job done. Let's wait the next couple of weeks. We'll see what's up with these guys and see how that goes. Any other thoughts you had on Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen? I mean, you already kind of hit on them quite a bit, but any other reflections on what you saw in the game?
No, again, we don't see what's going on in practice. And when they're going one-on-ones in practice, when they're going some live, whether it's 7-on-7 or 11-on-11, they're going against the Lions stars. They're going against the line, when they're filling in there. So I think that's the big difference. Trey Lance, I think his first touchdown or second touchdown was to their starting tight end. So you got an offensive line in front of these guys that are just trying to figure it out with, whether it's a rookie or guys trying to make the team and stuff like that. So again, let's see how the next 2-3 weeks go with the preseason and determine from there.
Yeah, there's so many variables that go into this, right? To the way it looks and what happens. I mean, another variable is how much they ran the football and who ran the football. I mean, Craig Reynolds, the number 3 running back, was out there. He looked solid. He should keep that spot. I don't doubt that will happen. Sione Vaki is banged up right now, so he wasn't available. But I was like, can we run Craig a little bit less, if at all? I mean, okay, I get that he's got to be out there, but let's have him just do a little bit less so that we get these other guys in there and we just kind of protect Craig. I think we know what we have in him, and maybe that will be what happens going forward. But were you surprised how much Craig Reynolds was touching the ball?
Oh, yeah, he had 23 snaps, 43% of the offensive plays, and that Small had 25 snaps, 47 of the offensive plays. So, yeah, it was pretty shocking on that, but I think they were trying to establish that. Part of it, of course, when you read things about, oh, he could be a guy up for, are they showcasing him because maybe they could trade him to another team? I hope that's not the not the case. But again, I think it was the depth and the guys that they had. And Craig Reynolds is one of those guys that just says, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. You want me to carry the ball 27 times in a preseason game? I'll do it. So keep him, love him. He's made some huge plays for us over the years, and again, he's a great special teams guy for us. So, and I think once we get healthy, he won't be carrying as much.
I agree. I think that's exactly. I think it was a victim of circumstance, so to speak, where they needed him to do that. He is a perfect number 3 for our team, and he's the kind of guy that the Lions want at that spot because it doesn't cost as much money either, but they know how dependable and hardworking he is and reliable. Let's jump over to the secondary a minute. Rock Ya-Sin, okay? James and I have talked about him for a couple years in a row because he's become a free agent. He's been with 3 different teams each of the last 3 seasons. He's a former second-round pick by the Indianapolis Colts, though. And man, the physicality that we saw him play with, Coach, that just screams Detroit Lions grit right there. And I think, man, it's going to be hard to not have that guy on this roster.
I'll tell you that the stop the touchdown on that one play. What's Chargers back's name? The rookie, Quentin. Is it Quentin or something like that?
It's escaping me right now.
I know. Anyways, but that play when Rock came down, just freaking took his feet out from underneath him. Man, is he physical. And I heard Campbell say today that they're looking at him at safety too. So that tells me, they talked about with him doing that, that tells me they want him on the team. They want to, if, in a pinch. He's been, like you said, 3 different teams in 3 years, correct? So his knowledge of the game and his packages from other program, from other teams and their playbooks and stuff like that. He's going to be a great guy to keep on the roster. And again, he definitely can play the game and be a run stopper for us.
For sure, that physicality that he comes with as well. It's yeah, and he's a depth guy. He's not even the starter. So I'm liking what we saw out of him. He looked well. Now the secondary did struggle a little bit. Enos Rakestraw still a work in progress. He got beat early on a pass play, and that was a big gain. So he didn't play much last year. Overcame some injuries to kind of work his way back in. He was looking good before the injuries. But, at the end, it was like there wasn't much playing time for him. I think we're going to see hopefully more, but he had a setback in practice again today with another injury. They're reporting it sounds like a shoulder injury. So we'll have to see if the guy can get healthy and get some, stack some reps, some games, some practices in the preseason so that he can evolve and become the guy that they were expecting when they got him in the second round. Anything else you saw in that secondary from the Lions that jumped out to you from that preseason game?
The safety, the kid from GV,
Ian Kelly, I think it was.
Ian Kelly, man, that tackle he made, and I think he had 6 tackles. So we definitely got some guys.
Kennelly. Ian Kennelly.
Kennelly, yes, thank you. We definitely got some guys that are stepping up, especially the safety spot, and they got 2 of the best to learn from. So these young guys are learning a ton from those guys, and they love to hit. And again, he's going to be a tough one to keep, just because of the depth we have. But hopefully, it's one of that he ends up on the with the practice squad, or he keeps shining like he did the other day. He may make the team.
Yeah. Some of these guys, like you said, they're trying to get that practice squad spot. And so a number of them will get it because the Lions look at that as just the extension of their current roster. And I believe most of those practice squad spots are going to come from this current roster right now because it is that deep. They've got these guys in camp that long. There may be 1 or 2 that they pull from the outside, but I think they've had time to build this 90-man roster. They're going to use a lot of it going forward. We talked about all the draft picks from this year will be fine. We think the 7th rounders are going to make the squad, even though this roster is that deep, much deeper. And everybody from last year, no doubt about that one either. But the 2023 draft class is where we start to have some questions. And the guys we're wondering about, which everybody I think is wondering about, is defensive line Broderick Martin, offensive line Colby Sorsdale, 3rd round and 5th round picks from the 2023 draft. What are you seeing on either of these guys, Coach?
Well, Colby he graded out 74.2%. So he had a pretty, he played pretty well. So I think, again, he's got to build on it. He's got to build, he's got to stack them. You got to stack, you said it earlier, you got to stack days, you got to stack practices, you got to stack games. And as you continue to stack those and get that positive feedback, then you got a great shot at. Broderick Martin I didn't think he played. I can't remember what his grade was or how many snap count, but he had the one play where he just about knocked the ball down on almost got to the quarterback and had had a great pressure. And so you saw some light there. Again, next game, next preseason game is going to determine those. And as long as they can stack them and stay healthy, that's going to be the thing. Back to Rickstraw, I want to touch base on him real quick again. I know he missed a couple practices this year already too, in which probably hurt in that game. So he's got to stay healthy and knock that rust off. So, but again, those 2 guys, I'm not I'm kind of pleased with what we saw out of them, and we'll see what happens in the next couple. And I can't wait for the joint practice against the Dolphins on the 13th, because then you really get to see some stuff with these guys going one-on-ones.
Yeah, and we're going to be there at that practice on the 13th, so we'll get to see it live. Get to make all our own observations straight from that as well. Rakestraw, you got to stay healthy, right? Being healthy in a row, practicing like that's how you're going to get better. And obviously, when you come back from injuries and having to battle that's a whole extra set of circumstances. As for Martin and Sorsdal, man, if these guys can ascend,
Cool.
the opportunities are there. We could use more depth on that offensive line, especially if they're having him play at tackle, because we would love a great number 3 tackle, in addition to having Dan Skipper there. And then defensive tackle, there's room right there with all the injuries we have going on. So the opportunity is there. Hopefully they can make progress and they can help fill part of that need. All right, some camp updates. Well, any other final thoughts from the Hall of Fame game?
No.
Okay. Camp updates. Arnold is expected back this week. He has a hamstring thing. It's small, they said. Decker is back and practicing. Skipper had a low ankle sprain, expected to be out for about a week. The Lions did sign an offensive lineman today, I believe it was. And then, as mentioned, Rakestraw left practice early, shoulder injury being evaluated for, and Dan Jackson left early as well, being evaluated for a leg injury for those things. Coach, we noticed this during the Hall of Fame game, but I want to start talking about coaching a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of new coaches. Obviously, both coordinators are new, and I think that is really good for them to get the feel. Let's just start with that. The coordinators, John Morton and Calvin Shepard. What's it like for them to have this under their belt, their first full game in the line with the Lions? John Morton's called some stuff in the past, but Calvin Shepard is new to this level. What's it like for them to just have that feeling and know what that whole game day feeling from pre-kickoff to post-kickoff is like?
Well, it's huge. I mean, you go with the script that you want to go through, and let's talk about Shepard. Sudden change, because when we think we're going on offense, all of a sudden he's got to get the defense out there and make the call. Those turnovers are really good for Calvin Shepard. I mean, not really good for the offense, but from a defensive standpoint, as a past defense coordinator for many years, that sudden change is huge. Where you have a mindset on, okay, this is what we're going to look, and then bang, all of a sudden you're back on the field trying to stop somebody on short field. So I think that's one of the things that Shepard got so much out of this game that people don't think about, other than we don't want 5 turnovers in games. So I think that definitely helped with him, learning that point of the game and getting a lot more practice at it in an early stage than he had probably had planned. But you can't predict practice. You can predict your scripts. Games you can't predict, so that's a big one. And again, we're going to go back to that. We have 4 this year. A lot of teams don't want it, but I think it's healthy and beneficial for our coordinators. Johnny Morton, again, he has, Dan Campbell said it today in his press conference about more first downs. Johnny Morton didn't have those first downs, didn't have that. We fumbled to start the game, we fumbled to start the third quarter, and now he has to go back and retool. The thing I noticed about him was they didn't panic, they didn't try to win the game. I think they still went with their script on things. They said, okay, we were planning on running the ball. We ran the ball down in that great drive and scored after those 2 big passes to Tesla. So, and I see Johnny Morton's up in the box.
That's actually, you read the script here, the rundown. That's what I wanted to ask you about, yes. Coach. I saw that he's up top, and if I'm not mistaken, like about 20 offensive coordinators are the play callers. A lot of head coaches do play calling, but most of them, like I think they said 16 out of 20 last year, were on the sideline. Ben Johnson on the sideline. And so how's that different being up there, and what are some of the challenges or advantages?
Well, I can go through a ton of those, but the thing about being on the sidelines, you have to be able to stay within your head and within your game and not get involved in everything that's going on, the excitement and things like that. That's hard. That is very hard to do as a coordinator down there if you get emotionally attached to certain plays. So Johnny Morton being upstairs, he probably said he's probably better clear where he can talk to his guys. The hard thing about that is he doesn't have the opportunity to sit on the bench with Jared Goff during games, or with Hendon Hooker or with Allen during the game and say, look at this play, we got to look at it. That's going to probably be his quarterback guy or his analytic. I don't know what they're doing. Again, I'm not in charge of that. Where Ben Johnson, how many times did you see him sitting on the bench and talking to Goff and going over things, or being able to, grab him coming off the field and hug him and say, hey, don't worry about that throw. Don't worry about that interception. Don't worry that we didn't pick the first down. So there's a lot of intangibles that go into that. Johnny Morton may be one of those guys that feels more comfortable up there. He's not able to speak with him. Shepard, there's no way that guy would ever be in the box because he would come out of it. He would dive out the window to get on the field to talk to guys, and that's his forte. That's what I think he's going to be great at, with that, where he can get emotionally involved during the game, during the excitement and things like that. But I think he can gear himself down to when he has to coach, and so it's interesting. It's OCs I think OCs are better where they can sit and look at the analytics and have the guy next to them and saying things like that, where defense wise, it's more of an emotional thing where you can scream, go get the ball and don't worry about it.
All right, so I think you hit on something big there, a couple of things, but one is Goff will be on the phone talking to Morton, right?
Yes.
When they want to communicate, they'll be on the phone.
Yeah.
And Mark Brunell may have an expanded role on that sideline as the quarterback's coach, where he'll be sitting down there and, he'll obviously be in constant communication with Morton, but, he'll be relaying stuff and helping analyze it. So they'll have somebody there still. It'll be a different person. And then, I've also heard, obviously it makes sense, you get the aerial perspective of things when you're up in the booth. That can be an advantage to an offensive coordinator, even though, again, most of them tend to be on the sideline. So that also could play a role into it.
Oh, for sure. And I like the Burnell call because I'm sure him and Goff have a great relationship. And those are the things that, he's just keep climbing up the ladder. We thought we were going to lose him and stuff like that. I think he's one of those. And plus, he's been there before. Plus, he's been on the sidelines. Plus, he's been in those halls. Plus, he's been on the field. So I think it's huge. I think it's and again, the eye, and go back to Morton, the eye in the sky don't lie. And when you can sit up there and analyze what's going on, and you have the time, and I was in the booth, for the analytics stuff when I was at Saginaw Valley State University, and it was hard for me the first couple of weeks. But then I started saying, man, this is kind of nice. But you want to be down there. You want to hear the pads crack and you want to hear the excitement of the crowd. But offensive coordinator is a different animal. And I think it's going to be a plus for him. And again, I'm going to go, I like the Burnell call on the sidelines with an experienced quarterback, talking to Goff and setting him down and seeing what he saw from that area.
Well, that too, right? With his previous experience playing that position for as much as he did in his career and being so successful, it's a natural fit. I did learn something, and I'm not the only one. Apparently, Ahmed Hassanin learned it as well, that on the sideline, you can't watch video. You only get still frames. And he's like, I didn't know that. In college, we could watch video. And I'm like, I didn't know that either. And so you get the still frames of it, and you can draw where the guys run and stuff, but you can't be watching it. And so, so I learned that as well from the Hall of Fame game. Hey, any concerns you have at this point? What are you concerned about with the Lions?
Nothing. I just think we just talked about a couple injuries in practice. We wanted those guys, the guys that got banged up, are guys that need these reps during the preseason. So again, the only thing and I go back to it is, let's see how the negativity from the last game and the things that did not work out. Let's see if they're better this week. And let's find those, second and third teamers and some surprise guys that are going to see more reps.
All right. I guess I would say concern, not about the play. It's week 0, right? And so it's like your first scrimmage. So I'm not even putting much weight in that one. I want the team to stay healthy. I know we've got some longer term injuries, and those are concerns. You want those guys to get healthy. But again, nothing other than obviously the Levi Onwuzurike one. And we already knew about Liam McNeil coming back much later, and Rodrigo. So I'm not too concerned about that. Just want to see guys stay healthy or get healthy. Coach, over the next week, going into Atlanta and stuff, what are you looking forward to seeing? What are you expecting out of the Lions this week in practice and just getting ready for that next game?
I think again, stacking it, stacking a day and improving, for the guys that had their first taste of the NFL. One guy I didn't talk about, and I'm going to watch in this next game is Nate Lynn. He had 84.9%. His run stopping ability was unbelievable. So I think that's one of the biggest, one of the things I'm going to watch this week. And of course, watch the guys that have already produced to see how well they do. And then of course, the guys that didn't play so well to see if they get better.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the big thing is everyone's going to get that opportunity to bounce back this week and see now that they've got that one game under there, how do they handle it? Oh, I didn't talk about this. Let's talk about the kickoff a minute. Grant Stewart, right? Yeah. He's not a kick returner. At least he hasn't been. And people think, okay, you want your fastest guy on there. And I know the first one was a fumble and whatnot, but that guy actually came back and actually had a pretty solid showing in the game. And he had another kick return. Mm-hmm. And somebody said something to me about it. I said, well, I think they're probably trying some different body types out back there because it's a whole different thing. I know we had last year, but last year was like the figure it out year, right? And so now they want someone that can break tackles, not just avoid tackles. And he seems to have that body type.
Oh, he does. And he's a big human being. So again, he had a huge play on a sack too, where he got laid out and he got up off the ground and ran the guy down. So again, it's funny because I was reading the thing on him today and he said, well, I've been so worried about not dropping the kick that I didn't work on how to hang on to it. So he said he's going to get his extra work in with the running backs this week after practice and learn the technique of making sure you hang on to the ball. It was a fluke. It was a fluke fumble, but to see him back there was crazy. And what better guy to probably leading up the sidelines on a kick return than him? I'm sure he's going to seek and destroy somebody coming down on kickoff coverage.
Well, that's the other thing, too, is if he's not the guy getting the ball, he's blocking for it. And, yeah, exactly. Perfect guy for that. All right. Well, Coach Campbell did say 5 turnovers wasn't acceptable. I think that was his big negative thing from that. And you talked about it, that severely limited what the offense could actually practice. Hopefully that's a big improvement this coming week. Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope. Just looking forward to the next preseason game.
Awesome. Well, just want to remind folks again one more time, if you want an opportunity to win the Barry Sanders statue that was given away at Ford Field, find us on Twitter at NTSOL Podcast. There will be a post there. You need to do 3 things. You need to follow us, you need to retweet the post, and then you need to subscribe to us on YouTube at Not the Same Old Lions. That will get you entered for that drawing. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media as well as all major streaming platforms. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. You can check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.